Welcome back to another episode of Dueker Sports. I'm Dylan Dueker. I'm joined by, as always, by Christian Lunday, and today we are talking all things Wild Card Weekend. There's another game that's going to happen tonight, but we're going to focus on what happened this weekend. And the first thing that I wanted to do today is I wanted to give you guys our number one offensive performer of the weekend and our number one defensive performer of the weekend. We'll also be talking best team performance. And then we're going to get into a little bit of a breakdown, not necessarily a recap of the games, but some interesting details from each game. And then we'll do a quick preview of the Buccaneers versus Cowboys game tonight. So starting off, we're going to do our top individual offensive performer of the weekend. And I'll go first. And mine was Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy played lights out this weekend. He was 18 of 30, 332 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, 16 rushing yards. He had a rushing touchdown. He had the highest quarterback rating of any quarterback this weekend. And they got the big win over the Seattle Seahawks. This is insane. This guy, we keep talking about it. We're going to mention it again. This guy was the last pick in the draft this year. And he's out here doing this in a playoff game against a division opponent. And the Seahawks defense isn't that great, but still, this performance was spectacular for Brock Purdy. No turnovers. That's impressive. He did start off a little slower. He was 9 of 19 in the first half, but he turned it around going 9 of 11 to finish out in the second half. But yeah, I think Brock Purdy just had a fantastic performance this weekend.
Yeah, I agree. I think he played amazing, especially in the second half. He had some absolute darts that I even texted you about earlier in the game. But my offensive performer was a little bit different. I was originally going to go with Christian McCaffrey, like we discussed, but after I knew that Debo Samuel had a huge impact on the game. But when I actually sat down and actually looked at the box score, he had a phenomenal game. The dude touched the ball only 9 times and had 165 total yards. That's 18.3 yards per touch. And he had a touchdown to boot. I think it was a 74-yard touchdown. So he had a huge imprint on the game here. And it's good to see him back. I know he's been injured for a little while. This was his first game back, and he looked in all-pro form.
He actually played last weekend as well.
Well,
He
thanks
didn't.
for
He
that
didn't.
correction.
Yeah, he didn't have a huge impact on that game, and he didn't play his normal amount of reps, but he did play the week before. But yeah, definitely he was back in full force in this game. And I'm glad that you switched it to him. McCaffrey had a great game, and we were talking about right. I didn't know who he was going to pick before until right before the show started, and he told me he was switching his pick from McCaffrey to Samuel, which I thought was a good move because though McCaffrey had a good game, I think Debo Samuel had a great one. I think Debo Samuel, to me, he was my third best individual offensive performance. I'll get into who was second later in the game recaps. Moving on to our defensive performers of the week. Mine, and I'm assuming Christian's is this, but it's the same.
Yep.
Asante Samuel Jr. My goodness, the Chargers may have lost the game, but it wasn't because of Asante Samuel Jr. The guy was incredible. He had 3 interceptions in this game. He had 6 pass deflections, and he even made a few tackles as well. One thing that's interesting, he is the first player in NFL history to have 3 interceptions in his first ever playoff game. Also, I looked it up because I wanted to know if it was a record for a playoff game overall. He actually is second all time, tied with several other players with the 3 interceptions for most interceptions in a playoff game in general. First place was a Houston Oiler in 1979 by the name of Vernon Perry. So anytime that you do something that is the best since 1979, you deserve Defensive Performer of the Week.
Yeah, these were interesting interceptions. It brought me back to over a decade. I think ago. I think it was 2007 when Antonio Cromartie picked off Peyton Manning 3 times in the same playoff game when the Chargers were wearing their powder blues. Ended up winning in overtime with a Darren Sproles touchdown to open overtime. That's what this performance reminded me of. These interceptions were just he was aggressive, but he was in the right spot at the right time for all three. I feel like and he gave his team the best chance to win. I think that was a monumental effort, and he took advantage of Trevor Lawrence.
Absolutely. I think he played fantastically well. He was a big reason why the Chargers were able to jump out to that huge lead, which actually brings us to our next topic, which is best overall team performance. And as expected, it's the Jacksonville Jaguars for both of us. But everyone's talking about the 27-point comeback, and that is pretty impressive. That's the third biggest comeback in postseason history. I'm going to say this just for Christian. Number 2 was the Chiefs versus Colts a few years ago. I mean, it's been more than a few years. I forget what year, 2013, I think. But neither here nor there. Just wanted to let you know. But so this is the third biggest comeback in postseason history. But there's more than just a 27-point comeback. So they're only the 9th team in NFL history to have the number 1 overall pick and then make the playoffs. Now, I will say 2 of those teams traded in order to get the number 1 overall pick. That was the Dallas Cowboys in 1991, and it was the 1978 Houston Oilers. So neither of them had the worst record. So of the 7 teams now, that's including Jacksonville, that had the worst record, got the number 1 overall pick, and then made the playoffs, the Jaguars are the first team ever to win that playoff game. They're the first team ever to win a playoff game after having the worst record the season before. And they did it against a Chargers team that was, they underperformed throughout the year, certainly. And I think we talked about, I picked the Jaguars to win by 1. So just as I predicted, 27-0, and then the Jaguars come back to win by 1. No, I'm just kidding. I definitely did not see it happening like that. But I did expect a 1-point victory by the Jaguars because these two teams very evenly matched. I thought the Chargers would come out and play tough on defense. They did. I thought that the offense would struggle a little bit, which is why I thought they would lose 23-24. They did struggle on offense, but their defense played lights out. Their defense exceeded my expectations, at least in the first half. I don't think there's any other team that we could possibly pick. Maybe we could talk about the Miami Dolphins, but it's definitely the Jaguars.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for bringing up suppressed memories of Andrew Luck catching his own football and then Superman diving into the end zone after we gave up, 25 points to the Indianapolis Colts. That's never fun. I've been on the shoe. I've been in the same shoes that the Chargers are in now. It's a very terrible feeling to give up that much. And it sticks with you forever. Like I was just explaining the other day, like I've seen collapses like this. I've been on the side of the Chargers where we just utterly collapse in the second half, and it never leaves, and it's just as painful every time I think about it. But they'll bounce back from this. I think Brandon Staley is definitely on the hot seat if he isn't already. But yeah, I agree. Like the Jaguars, I texted you when it was 27-7. They scored a touchdown right before the end of the half, and I was like, hey, this kind of feels like it's not over. I'm surprised that the Chargers are only up 20 points. And you were like, oh, it's over.
I
And it turns out,
oh, believe me, it's over.
it wasn't over. And it's like, I'm glad because it made for a fun game to watch. And, I try to think about happy comebacks, like the Chiefs scoring 51 points against the Texans, when we were down 24-0. That's what I try to remember. So Jaguar fans are going to remember this game for a very, very long time.
So did you mean to say Marcus Mariota, or did Andrew Luck also catch his own pass for a touchdown? Because I remember Marcus Mariota did that.
So Marcus Mariota did that when we played the Titans, but it was Andrew Luck that I'm pretty sure he also did that. And then he did the Superman dive. And, unlike Taylor Huntley, it actually went in.
Tyler Huntley.
Huntley, yeah.
That's fair. That reminded me of a tweet that I saw where Gisele Bunchkin, before the divorce of Tom Brady, had posted something about her husband not being able to throw and catch the ball, or she had said that in an interview. and then someone made like a
Yeah.
fake account for Marcus Mariota, and it was like, "Speak for yourself."
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, definitely Jacksonville Jaguars. I think best overall team performance, one of the best team performances we've seen ever, probably in the playoffs. I mean, it's the third biggest comeback of all time.
Yeah.
So next, we're going to move on to something that we almost forgot to talk about before we started the show, but it was the biggest blunder of the weekend. And I think that I know we disagree on this. We did kind of talk about this a little bit, just casually, because Christian and I are friends outside the show as well. So we
Surprise.
were just kind of talking about it. Yeah, surprise. So we were talking about it just over the weekend, and I want to discuss it on the show. And I know we know what each other are going to say here, but I thought that the biggest blunder of the weekend was Kirk Cousins on 4th down and 8, the final offensive play of the game. And what does he do? He checks it down, 3-yard pass to TJ Hawkinson, who was covered well and was brought down immediately. You actually made a post about it. I was thinking about it. I got on Facebook, and then I saw that you had already posted about it. And to me, I don't know what is going through your mind. You at least have to take a risk in order to try to gain that first down there. That's the last time you're going to touch the ball. I know that he was under pressure, but you have to at least give the offensive players a chance to make a play to get the first down. That play was, I don't know what he was thinking. Hawkinson had no momentum after catching the ball, and he was covered. The odds of him breaking that tackle and going all the way for a first down is got to be extremely low. So that to me, that was the biggest blunder of the weekend.
Yeah, the throw wasn't even good either. Like TJ Hawkinson had to like come up behind himself to grab it on his right hand when it should have been out in front of him to his left. So the throw wasn't even good either. But I'm going to go with Tyler Huntley's reach across the goal line. There are a few exceptions in NFL history where that has worked, including LaDainian Tomlinson against the Titans in the playoffs in 2007. But he had both hands top to bottom, cupping the ball as he outstretched it. But Tyler Huntley, there's a reason coaches like Bill Belichick say never extend the ball, and it's for that reason. I've seen it happen in a Tennessee Alabama game. I've seen it happen like actually multiple times in college football where the quarterback sneaks, extend the ball, it gets hit out of their hand, and then someone takes it to pay dirt on the other side. When you think about it, the score was 17-17. If you score here, you're on the 1 yard line, you're about to go up 24-17. Your defense has played lights out. It's played very well against a high flying Bengals offense. And you've got all the momentum. You score here, the game changes drastically. And it's very likely at that point, I think there's a strong argument where you can go on to win that game, because all you would need if the Bengals scored is, maybe another good defensive drive and a field goal, and you win. And you've got the best field goal kicker in the game in Justin Tucker. Like you could have walked away from this with the Bengals going home, and you going to see the Chiefs in the next playoff game. But instead, you make a bad decision to extend the football. You fumble it at the goal line. They take it back 99 yards for a touchdown. I just think that was the biggest blunder. I'm like, you don't need to do that. You go low, you push, you can go to 4 downs. I definitely would have gone for it on 4th down if you didn't get it this play. So I definitely think that was the biggest blunder in my opinion. I think it changed the game and put the momentum on the Bengals side.
I agree. Obviously, we're talking about kind of like an individual play that ended up resulting in the biggest blunder. Obviously, the biggest blunder was the Chargers blowing a 27-point
Yeah,
lead.
right.
But no, so actually, only one thing was incorrect from what I heard that you just said, and this is why I think this makes it an even larger blunder. You talked about them being at the 1 yard line; they were actually at the 2 yard line, and that to me is why I think it's a horrible play call. So it's funny because I actually made a Facebook post about this play, but we chose each other's plays. But I understand so Trevor Lawrence did the same thing in the game against the Chargers, but he was at the 1 yard line, and they were spaced out on offense, which kept the middle linebackers out of the center of the play. So he was able to just see the hole, and then he just extended his arm over the offensive line and got the touchdown. This play was a blunder for a few reasons. Number one, you're at the 2 yard line, so you're 6 feet from the end zone. I don't know what they did. They think he was going to dive 6 feet from a dead standstill
Yeah, you have
with
to
the
be like
ball extended.
Elastigirl to like extend
Yeah.
your arms.
Like I don't know what the thought was there. I actually think that Tyler Huntley made this decision because as Chris Collinsworth pointed out during the game, the offensive lineman ended up coming in behind him as if they were going to push him. So I think the play call was for him to go low and for the offensive lineman to help push him into the end zone, which would have been a fine call. But trying to jump over the line with one hand and extend the ball 6 feet, that doesn't make any sense. There's like a 90% chance that that ball is going to be fumbled, and it was. It was batted out of his hand. Then Hubbard took it 98 yards for a touchdown, which is the longest fumble recovery for a touchdown in NFL history. And it was very impactful because that's a 14-point swing. So instead of going up by a touchdown late in the game, now you're down a touchdown. That ultimately decided the game. And you're right. Their defense has played well all game. They'd only given up 17 offensive points. Uh, I don't know. And I saw a few things on social media this morning when I first woke up. J.K. Dobbins is not happy. He was complaining. He was like, "I'm tired of not getting the ball. I'm tired of like not being given those opportunities." This guy has averaged almost 6 yards a carry throughout his first 2 seasons where he's actually played. He missed his second season due to an injury, but he's averaging almost 6 yards a carry in his career. He's been playing spectacularly well to end this season, and he didn't even get to run the ball that many times in this game. And in that biggest moment, I think that giving it to Dobbins, who is an actual running back, who
Yeah, and
might
he's
be able to get a
stout.
little bit of momentum moving forward and like impose your will. That's what the Ravens do, run the football. And then I saw where he talked about if we had Lamar Jackson, we would have won. And then Lamar Jackson, I don't know. It was like a cryptic tweet. I don't know if he's saying goodbye. He can't because the Ravens already came out and said if they cannot reach a deal, they're going to franchise tag him. But I don't think Lamar Jackson wants to be there. There was a lot of speculation that he could have played in that game, but he chose not to because he wants to leave. I don't know if that's true or not, but because of his tweet this morning, I'm inclined to believe that is the case. But I think he was. I'm not saying he's not injured. I think he was, but I think that he probably could have gone and would have gone had that long term deal already been ironed out. But I don't know. The Ravens, that play may haunt them for more than just because of the loss. It may come back to haunt them because now you've alienated your star running back. I don't know, stars maybe a loose term there, but he's definitely up and coming. And then you also have pissed off your quarterback, who, like him or love him. I think you could do a lot worse than Lamar Jackson. There's a lot of people that question his actual arm talent and accuracy, but he wins. He's been a winner in the National Football League. He was a winner in college, and now he feels alienated by the team because you can't get the deal done. If the Ravens do not handle this situation very carefully, this could go bad in many, many ways.
Yeah, I agree. I'm looking at the play by play and it says they were at the 1 yard line, but the point still stands. Like you don't have 3 feet arms. You still got to reach over a line, two linemen, offensive defense and break the play. And you just don't have those long arms. And just like you said, this has cascading like secondary and tertiary effects. You alienate your running back who wants those touches. You slightly if you called the play to do a quarterback sneak, you've slightly embarrassed your second string running back who fumbled on a big play and everyone's watching it. And then you've also alienated your star quarterback whom has played his butt off for you for the past 3-4 years as MVP player. He's got the MVP award. So like these have consequences that I think you're absolutely right. It's going to haunt the Ravens, I think, maybe for the next couple of years.
Yeah, and I think it was inside the 2 yard line by about a foot. It was like one of those where they say like fourth and one, but it's a long one.
Gotcha.
This was one of
Yeah.
those instances. It was basically like 5 feet, so pretty much 2 yards away. And so, I guess we're both right. It was just inside the two. But regardless, not only all of this happened, I don't know if you saw it, but John, I just want to say one more thing about this game before we move on. John Harbaugh's interview.
Oh,
I can't remember her name. It's like Melissa, I think. I can't think what her last name is. He had an attitude. He had an
he did.
attitude. Was that going into half? I can't remember.
Yeah,
Or was it first quarter?
I think it was, yeah, because she had walked up to him. I think in the interview, I think it was right. Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, I think, and she was just asking some questions, and he definitely was not very pleased by her questions. He and it showed in his responses and in his facial reactions. All around, this was a bad game for the Ravens, a bad look for the Ravens, and I don't even know, man. I think the coach, I think he's upset. I think that this is the first. I think John Harbaugh is a fantastic coach, but I think this season and this game is starting to shift the Ravens and place him on the hot seat because they can't get a long term deal done with Jackson. Their offense has been kind of ugly for a few years. They're able to run the ball well. A lot of people are complaining about the time management at the end of the game because they kept running the ball. I can see why people be upset, but the Ravens cannot throw the ball, especially in obvious passing situations. I don't trust Tyler Huntley throwing the ball to Demarcus Robinson. I think that you should be running the ball, and that's what they did, and it got them down the field, so it worked. But everyone's complaining about it and saying that, like, they needed to throw the ball more, and I get it, but that's the thing with the Ravens. They have an inability to throw the ball other than to Mark Andrews, really. He's their only dependable receiver. Maybe Rashad Bateman, but he's obviously out in this game and for most of the season. So they need to surround Lamar Jackson by pass catchers, or they're going to keep playing this style of offense. And I don't think that it will ever be good enough to win them a Super Bowl, unless if their defense just plays historically well. And they played extremely well this year, and it still wasn't enough.
Right.
So be interesting to watch this situation moving forward. Now I want to talk about each game, just make a few comments about each game from this weekend. First up, it was the Seattle Seahawks taking on the San Francisco 49ers. Final score 23-41. Niners obviously advancing to the divisional round. And the point I want to make about this is the balanced offense that the 49ers displayed in this game. So we kind of talked about it. I picked Brock Purdy for my best individual performer. You picked Deebo Samuel after switching from Christian McCaffrey, and it's because all three of them had a fantastic game. And the offensive line played extremely well. They had 0 turnovers in this game. The defense played like decently well. Nothing spectacular. But yeah, I think that's the key takeaway from this game is just the balanced offensive approach. This team definitely looked like the best team this weekend. They also, for dang sure, look like the best offense in probably the entire league.
Yeah, I agree. I think Charvarius Ward got cooked a few times by DK Metcalf, especially that long play. But other than that, I thought the defense played extremely well. They put pressure on Geno Smith, forced him into some errant throws, not inerrant throws, but errant throws. And I think that, like you said, the offense was just clicking on all cylinders. Like a guy that I think produced well but was very quiet was George Kittle. Like he got lost in this shuffle, but he still played well too and made some crucial grabs. So like they were firing literally all cylinders. They were a greased up machine, primed and ready to go for this playoff run.
Yeah, Brandon Ayuk also had 3 catches for 73 yards. So
Yeah.
everyone contributed. If their offense plays like that, they're going to win the Super Bowl if they continue to play like that each game. Just absolutely incredible performance. The next game we're talking about, the Chargers versus the Jaguars. We're not going to talk about the 27, or at least I'm not going to talk about the 27-point comeback because I think that's the most saturated topic of the weekend. There's a few points that I want to make about this game. Number one being turnovers. So that's the only reason that the Chargers jumped out to the 27-0 lead to begin with, is that Jaguars had 4 turnovers that led to the 27 points. The Jaguars defense actually didn't play horribly throughout the game. They held the Chargers to 3 point, or I can't remember if it was, no, it wasn't them. Yeah, I think they averaged like 3.1 yards per carry. And then Justin Herbert had he had like 200 something passing yards, 1 touchdown, no picks. But he had an 84 quarterback rating, so he didn't have that great of a game either. So the main thing here for me is Jaguars moving forward, going against the Kansas City Chiefs, especially the Kansas City Chiefs, because the Chargers made them pay. The Chiefs will make them pay as well. You cannot give Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, and that offense added possessions. The second thing I want to talk about was the second half. Each team had 4 possessions in the second half. With the for the Chargers, this is how it went. It went punt, field goal, missed field goal, which killed them. That was a 14-play drive that ultimately probably would have won them the game. And then another punt. So punt, field goal, missed field goal, punt. That was their 4 drives, 4 possessions. The Jaguars went like this: touchdown, 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 field goal. So that's the thing. It's in the second half, the Chargers offense came out extremely flat. The Jaguars took care of the ball. By doing so, they limited the possessions for the Chargers, and they were successful in offense. They went down, they scored on all 4 possessions, 3 of them being touchdowns. So that's my key takeaways from that game.
Nice, yeah. I'm going to focus on coaching and Trevor Lawrence since you hit on some of the other main parts. One, Trevor Lawrence. He's still a very young quarterback. This is his first playoff experience in the NFL, and I think he comes out still undefeated on Saturdays, which is insane. But I think he showed some great poise in the second half. From what I was watching, this is how I was reading his body language in the first half. He was anxious. He was nervous. He was getting hyped up about menial plays that didn't really mean a whole lot, which tells me that he's excited but also nervous. So mistakes are amplified. But I think this speaks to coaching. Doug Peterson is extremely underrated. And I don't even think they changed much of their game plan going into this game in the second half, but he got Trevor to settle down. He didn't pull Trevor. He let Trevor dig himself and his team out of the hole that he got them in by turning the ball over and throwing 4 picks. I think the Chargers, the organization looked at the other side of the field and saw Doug Peterson and the level of coaching and basically offensive prowess that Doug Peterson has coming from the Andy Reid lineage. And I think they looked at Brandon Staley and was like, we have a clear deficit and we're probably not going to win unless we fix this deficit. So I think that was it's a huge, commendable performance by Trevor Lawrence, but an even bigger one, I think, to Doug Peterson for settling his team down, sticking with it, chipping away at the lead. And I think the Chargers noticed that, and I think they want new leadership.
Yeah, so I had mentioned in the last show how I expected Sean Payton to become the new head coach of the Chargers, and I think this game made that even more likely. Afterwards, it was trending on social media. Everyone was saying Sean Payton's going to be the Chargers coach next year, and that is my prediction as well. Because Brandon Staley, obviously, the team did not. I think he's done a decent job, but he hasn't with a team that's this talented. I think this team has the talent to go to a Super Bowl the last few seasons. I think last year they had a chance, but the main thing here with them is like injuries. So I can't tell if I should blame this all on Staley or it's probably had something to do with injuries as well. I think if Mike Williams is in this game, I think it makes a big difference. Uh, I think that Everett, the tight end, played extremely well. Keenan Allen obviously had a few big plays. And I've never been that big of an Austin Eckler guy. He has great games, but he disappears in a lot of games. And this was a game that to me he disappeared from. He didn't make that many impactful plays throughout the game. Definitely not the second half. And he was held in check, I think, under 3 yards a carry on offense. You've got to have a run game. You can't just throw the ball every single play and expect it to work, especially when you have 2 receivers who have shown an inability to stay healthy throughout the course of the season. But Brandon Staley is uncomfortably on the hot seat, and it'll be very. I think they won't move on from him unless if they're able to bring in a Sean Payton or another high-profile coach. But I don't know. I'd be keeping some boxes nearby just in case if I'm Brandon Staley.
Yeah, I agree with you. In your vast wealth of Warren Buffett sized football knowledge, I was thinking back and forth about. I thought Sean Payton was going to go to the Broncos. I think you're 100% right. I think Sean Payton's looking and salivating at coaching Justin Herbert and that Chargers team. So I think you're one of the first people on this. Sean Payton to the Chargers. I think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, I've been saying that for a while. I also think that Dallas Cowboys would be my number 2 pick for him to go to. But for that to happen, the Cowboys would need to lose tonight. I think if Jerry Jones has shown that he likes to stick with a coach probably too long, and I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. When the alternative, we see some other teams where you give them 1 year, two if they're lucky, to turn a team around, and I don't think that's fair to the coach or to the players to be able to perform in the new system that quickly. Mike McCarthy has led this team to back-to-back 12-win seasons for the first time since the early to mid 90s. But if they lose back-to-back years in the opening round of the playoffs, obviously that time management blunder last year where Dak Prescott slid, ran out of time in the game instead of kicking it would have been a longer field goal, but I'd take that over running out the play clock. The
Yeah,
heck that
right.
was. So if they screw up tonight, if they lose the game, and especially if they do another boneheaded mistake like that, Mike McCarthy could be out. But it's, again, I think the only way either of those coaches go is if Sean Payton takes a job or another very high-profile coach. I don't have anyone off the top of my head right now, but yeah, I think if Sean Payton would agree to go to either of those teams, if the Cowboys lose tonight, then I think that that's the move that is made. Moving on to our next game, it was the Dolphins versus the Bills, and this was an interesting game. The Buffalo Bills, and this is why I've got a lot of people talking on social media about me picking the Chiefs versus the Eagles. And I'm an Eagles fan, as everyone knows. Christian's a Chiefs fan. That's not why I picked the teams. I picked the teams because for the Chiefs, I think that while maybe the Bills have a more well-rounded team, and the Bengals, I guess, do. I'm not sure about that. I think that the difference will be Patrick Mahomes, who is the best quarterback in the league right now, Andy Reid, who is one of, if not the best coach in the league right now, Travis Kelce, who is one of the top tight ends of all time. I think those three guys make the difference. Give me them, give me their playoff experience. They know how to win in the playoffs. Give me that over the Bills, who looked atrocious in this game. I do not believe in the Bills. I didn't believe I had them. I have the number as a number one seed. I think that they are the most talented team. I don't think that means they're going to win the Super Bowl. In my power rankings, I have them number one in the season. I had them number one going into the season. Last year, I never had them ranked number one because I don't believe in them. I still don't believe this team is a team that will win the Super Bowl. And this game highlighted exactly why I think that. I love Josh Allen as a person. He might be my favorite person that plays quarterback outside of Jalen Hurts right now. I love Jalen Hurts' leadership. Obviously, I take Josh Allen as the quarterback over Jalen Hurts. Sorry to all any Eagles fans listening to this. Don't hate me. But Josh Allen is a generational talent. That being said, he turns the ball over in big games. He's done it many times. I think that he is a little bit arrogant in the way that he plays, only in the sense that he doesn't take care of the ball. He's kind of a gunslinger. And you saw that in this game. They are very lucky that they did not lose this game. He threw 2 interceptions. Now, one of them did go off his receiver's hands, but still, he also had 3 fumbles. He only lost one of them because they're lucky, but he fumbled it 3 times. If you put I'm telling you right now, if you put the ball on the ground 3 times and throw 2 interceptions against Kansas City Chiefs, you're not winning that game. You're not winning that game. I also, like, Gabe Davis had a heck of a performance, as he does. Big game Gabe went off again, but you have to do that. And honestly, Dawson Knox played well. So you even had players outside Stephon Diggs stepping up on the offense, which is huge. The defense honestly shut down the Miami offense. They averaged less than 3 yards a carry as a team in this game. They couldn't run the ball whatsoever. And then Skylar Thompson's quarterback rating was 44. That's horrendous. The defense played fantastic. The reason why they almost lost this game was because of Josh Allen and this offense turning the ball over. And that's the highlight, the key point that I have for this game. And I'm telling you right now, I do think they'll beat the Bengals this weekend because the Bengals, I don't remember how many sacks they had, gave up yesterday. I predicted 6. I don't know how many
I
they
know they
actually
had
ended
at
up getting.
least 4.
Yeah,
I'm
same here.
pretty sure they had more
So
than that.
look that up for me if you don't mind.
Will do.
But yeah, I think that the Bengals are going to lose this upcoming matchup because of their inability to protect Joe Burrow. I think the Bills' defense is playing well. They're going to get a lot of pressure on him. but I expect the Chiefs to beat the Jaguars. And in that matchup, I expect the Chiefs to beat the Bills.
Yeah, they gave up 4 sacks.
Yeah.
Um, I think you hit on all the key points for this game. I think Skylar Thompson didn't play great, but I think clearly he played well enough for his team to have a chance to win. I think that the Bills, I think they didn't take good enough advantage of some key drop passes by Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. Um, but overall, yeah, this team lives and dies by the Josh Allen train. If he plays well, this team is close to being unstoppable. But just like you said, he's a gunslinger mentality. He is Brett Favre in Ben Roethlisberger's body when Ben was young, but more mobile than him. He's 6'6", 240 pounds, can run you over. And a big rocket arm, but he's never been the most accurate quarterback. And last season before this one was his most accurate season as a passer. So it's something he's had to improve on, and we can see that in the game. There is an errant throw that would have gotten them a crucial first down. I think that would have iced the game and put the game away from the Miami Dolphins, and it just sails. It just sails on them. And I'm like, this was an easy pass to complete to Dawson Knox, and you didn't do it. And I think that's just sometimes that's just par for the course with Josh Allen. Um, but this is just one game. Typically, he's a pretty great playoff performer. I expect him to improve, but I think you nailed it on the head.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see how these playoffs shake out, but I'm sticking with my picks. I think it's going to be Chiefs Eagles in the Super Bowl. Moving on to one of, I guess, the biggest upsets of the weekend, because really, I guess the Jaguars was an upset, but the Giants beating the Vikings is an upset, not a very big one, but uh, and I'm excited to talk about this game. And I will mention beforehand that I'm a little concerned as an Eagles fan about this Giants team. We've swept them in the regular season. I think we'll win this game, but the Eagles have not looked great in the last 3 games that they played in the regular season. They lost 2 of them, and they beat the Giants, pretty much their backup, like their second stringers, 22-16. They're going to have to play a heck of a lot better in order to beat the Giants team we saw this weekend, because the main highlight that I want to take away is Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones was my number 2 rated offensive player from this weekend. He played probably the best game of his entire career. In my eyes, he played a dang near perfect game. And I'll give you his stats right here. He was 24 of 35. He had 301 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns. He had 0 turnovers. He had 114.1 quarterback rating, and he ran for 78 yards on the ground as well. He also, not showing up in the stat book, but made great decisions. He took what the defense gave him. He went through his reads. He didn't like prematurely run. There were a couple times in the game where he took off running, kept his eyes down the field, made a throw. He played a perfect game. Saquon Barkley had 109 all-purpose yards and 2 touchdowns. And I forget the young receiver they have, Hodgins or whatever his name is.
Yeah,
but he played extremely well too. Yeah, Darius Slayton, not Darius Slay, Darius Slayton did have the 1 drop pass, but he's played well this whole season, and he played well in this game despite that drop pass that almost and could have cost them the game. But this Giants team played extremely well. They held the Vikings in check for the most part. I think Kirk Cousins got going pretty well. He had a good game. Jefferson had a pretty decent game. I think the one thing that keeps killing the Vikings is they lean too much on the passing attack, where they should run the ball a little more often, in my opinion, be a little more balanced. But yeah, the defense played for the Giants. They didn't have a single sack. They didn't have a single, but I think offense played and the defense played well enough. And I think everyone's talking about it's a foregone conclusion that the Eagles will win this game. And I'm telling you, as an Eagles fan right now, 1, this is a division matchup, so it's going to make it tougher. And 2, the Giants are playing their best football that they have played since they went to the Super Bowl in 2011. I don't know. It's been the best they've played in a while. I'm excited because this is the first time these two teams will meet in the playoffs, I think, since 2009. So this is going to be one heck of a matchup. And not just because I'm an Eagles fan, but this is the matchup. Well, okay, the Bills and Bengals are the matchup that everyone's looking for, but I expect this to match up to be just as good, and actually, if not better, because I do think the Bills will get a ton of pressure on Joe Burrow.
Yeah. I think the Giants. I Here's what I think. I think they overperformed. I am gonna praise Daniel Jones' performance because I agree with you. I think this is the best game that he's ever played in his career thus far. I think the Giants are slowly but surely becoming more accustomed to Daniel Jones becoming their franchise quarterback of the foreseeable future, as long as he stays healthy. He's just improved that much this year under new leadership, and I expect him to get better as the years go on. But here's what I think is unsustainable. Daniel Jones did run for 78 yards, but he had 17 carries. If this were any other quarterback like Lamar Jackson or Cam Newton, everyone would be saying, hey, this isn't sustainable. You're putting your body at risk too many times. And I think that's a possibility with Daniel Jones, despite his very underrated athleticism. Um, I think those carries need to go to their workhorse back, Saquon Barkley, because, like you said, he touched the ball, what was it, 14 times for over 100 yards. That man deserves more touches. Two of those touches resulted in touchdowns. Um, I think we need to let him. He's got the body to deal with the punishment. And if Daniel Jones is your franchise quarterback, there is no way you need to be letting him get hit 17 times. Um, Other than that, though, I'm very impressed by this win. This was the only game of the weekend slate of games that you and me picked incorrectly. We thought the Vikings would come out on top, and they lost. But we knew that it would be close. I think T.J. Hawkinson played phenomenally. If I'm the Eagles, I'm looking at Dallas Goedert taking the same advantage that T.J. Hawkinson was, because they were letting T.J. just get wherever he wanted to go, and he made every catch. But yeah, I think the Giants deserve some commendation for this win. I definitely think they need to be looking immediately to the Eagles and not celebrate this win, because they've got a very, very tough matchup against easily a top 4 team in football, and a major argument to be the best team in football. And so this is, to me, is a short-lived win, but very, very well deserved.
Yeah, I think what you're talking about, Daniel Jones being the franchise quarterback, I'm still not sold on him being the franchise quarterback, but I'm not sold on him not being the
Not being
franchise quarterback either. And I'll tell you why is because I still don't think that we've seen him in a system. Well, not a system, but like I will say in a system and with a supporting cast that we could get to see his true talent. Because I'm looking at their depth chart right now. So in this game, yeah, their receiving core is Isaiah Hodgins, Darius Slayton, and Richie James. And then Kenny Golladay is their fourth. That's not that good. Their
Their
offensive
big
line is
free
better
agent
this year.
signing.
Yeah. The offensive line is pretty decent this year. They had um I can't remember if they had an all pro. I know they at least had one pro bowler though. Andrew Thomas made the Pro Bowl. Evan Neal, the rookie, played really well this year as a right tackle. So they've improved the offensive line, and Daniel Jones has improved drastically because of it. Now let's get him some receivers on the outside and see what he can do. Because even their tight ends, like they have Daniel Bellinger as their starting tight end. Like these are guys, unless if you're a Giants fan or you watch a lot of Giants games, you probably don't even know who most of these guys are, other than maybe Slayton because he's been around for a while. But yeah, this is a team they need to get some receivers on the outside, and I think Daniel Jones could possibly be that guy. I think Brian Daboll makes all the difference, and continues to do so. I think he's already, in my mind, a top 10 coach in the NFL, and I think if they add more talent to this roster, this is a team that could be competing and be at least a contender for a Super Bowl in the next 3 to 5 years. Moving on to the final game of the weekend. We talked about it already a little bit. That was the Ravens versus the Bengals. Final score 17-24 Bengals. And really, the only thing that I wanted to talk about, and I'm not even going to talk about it because we already did, was the Tyler Huntley blunder. again, that was a 14-point swing, cost them the game. And then we talked a lot about this game and this team, so I won't get into it too much. But yeah, I think the Ravens defense played extremely well, and I think that there's going to be some big changes made this offseason because of some of the mental errors made on behalf of the Ravens. And as for the Bengals, I think that they did exactly what I expected. The defense played well enough. It was against Tyler Huntley and a Ravens offense that isn't accustomed to making big plays. Their offense played well. However, Joe Burrow was under pretty much constant pressure, and I think that's exactly why I predicted before the playoffs even began that they would make it out of the first round and then lose to the Bills. And that's exactly what I expect to happen.
Yeah, not much to go over here. I think Joe Burrow, another day at the office, wasn't his best game, but it wasn't his worst game by any means. Got sacked 4 times, but still held on to the ball, made smart decisions, got the ball out quick, put his team in position to win, and that's what they did. I think the receiving core came up big, especially Jamar Chase had some big catches towards the second half of the game where he really came alive. And I think that Joe Mixon. That offensive line isn't great, but I think Joe Mixon doesn't have the best field vision, and I've said this dating back to his days at Oklahoma before his suspension. But he's a talented running back, so you got to feed this. You got to feed this man the ball. 11 touches for carries is just not enough. And I think with the Buffalo Bills, they're going to be playing your wide receivers very heavily. So you need to. It's important to establish the run. So you need to give Joe Mixon way more touches. Other than that, yeah, it's what we kind of expected. I think I predicted a much lower score than this, so this kind of shocked me. But other than that, we both had the Bengals winning.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be 23-20, so I'm not that surprised. But yeah, it went almost exactly where I thought it was going to go. I think, if anything, the Ravens played a little bit better than I expected, even though
Yeah.
I thought they'd keep it close. And the final segment for today's show, we're going to talk about tonight's game. And I don't know why. I'm so excited about this game. I just love playoff football. It's a Monday. I didn't have school today, thank goodness. And all I've been thinking about all day long, other than this show, is this game. And it's the Cowboys versus the Buccaneers. It kicks off at 8:15 Eastern Standard Time. I saw a thing on Facebook today that I wanted to mention, and it was that the Cowboys have not won a road playoff game in 30 years. 30 years. They're going to be playing on the road today, and I'm not going to we both predicted that the Buccaneers would win. That was probably the game that I was the least confident about, and I'm still not confident that the Buccaneers are going to win because, quite frankly, I don't think either of these teams are playing their best football going into this game. I'm picking the Buccaneers for only a few reasons. One, I think their defense is more disciplined, whereas the Cowboys are more opportunistic. They will force turnovers. The Buccaneers will play at more consistent defense, and they won't make as many boneheaded mistakes. Number two, Tom Brady will not make as many boneheaded mistakes as I think Dak Prescott will. If the Cowboys come out and establish the run game, they will win this game. They will win the game. I think whichever team can establish a run will win this game, but I think the Cowboys are built to do that. They have a better offensive line because it's more healthy. They definitely have a better stable of running backs. They've got Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard, who are two phenomenal running backs. So I look at this game. This is a game I think could go either way. I think the Buccaneers win in a close game. I don't think the Buccaneers could blow out the Cowboys. If there's going to be a blowout, it's going to be the Cowboys over the Buccaneers because I think the Cowboys have a better team right now than the Buccaneers do. I think this is going to come down to like mental ability and awareness, and that heavily benefits the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And they have Tom Brady, who's the best winner of all time, and no one makes better decisions than he does. That's why he's the best player of all time, despite having little to no athletic ability. He's still the best quarterback of all time, best football player of all time, best winner of all time. And on the other side of the football, the Cowboys are the team that's notorious for making mistakes. I think this is going to be a heck of a football game. I can't wait to see how it plays out. I think the Buccaneers win in a close game, but honestly, I could see this going any number of ways. That the Cowboys could win it in a close one, or they could blow out the Buccaneers. Like I said, I don't think the Bucs are capable of blowing out the Cowboys, only for the fact that I think the Cowboys have a more talented roster. So I can't remember. I think my prediction was like 20-16 or something like that. Yours was 20-17.
Something like that.
But yeah, I think this is going to be a great game. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, I think this game is going to be very interesting. I think I had this as like the top game of games this weekend. Um, I'm looking forward to seeing Tom Brady. The Buccaneers intrigue me. They intrigue me because of their underperformance. Um, Mike Evans had another 1,000-yard season. Leonard Fournette is the same Nick and Bruce Lenny that I've known that he is since LSU days. But playoff Lenny can come out any moment, and that's terrifying if you're the Cowboys defense. I think the offensive line for Tampa Bay has been a mixed bag this year, but I think Tom Brady makes this game intriguing just because of his cachet, his reputation, his ability as a quarterback, everything that he's known and has gone through in the course of his career has led him here to this moment at the ripe old age of 45, going against the Dallas Cowboys with a team that's inconsistent, and that's being nice about it. But I still think they win because I just won't bet. There are very few times I'll bet against Tom Brady. This isn't one of them. I see him winning this game, maybe even in comeback fashion, but that's par for the course with Tom Brady, the greatest quarterback of all time.
Absolutely. Well, that's the end of our episode for today. Thank you guys for watching. Let us know what you think of the show in the comments. Also, let us know if you have any different opinions than we had. If we were wrong, tell us we're wrong. If we were right, by all means, tell us we were right.
Please.
If you have some topics that you would like us to discuss in upcoming episodes, definitely do that. That's what we're here for. We want to discuss the things you guys want to hear about. I'd love to hear some ideas of some things that you guys want us to talk about on the show. We will be back again later this week, so stay tuned. And again, thanks for watching.